This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're gonna acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I'm the host of the show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Michael5Ritter, and also available on Instagram, MichaelRitter5. You can also find me hosting the Football Function podcast, which is available on all of your podcasting platforms, including on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free experience, which who doesn't? But speaking of the Football Function, just a little bit of a shameless plug. We are rolling right now. I mean, football season's here, so needless to say, the content is there. It's pretty much just pushing itself out at this point. We have a host for the NFL show, which is me and my co-host, Terry Minifield. We also have a host for the college football world. We have WWE Podcast's own Double J hosting the Fantasy Football Function. And then we are introducing a new show next week called Football Rivalries, where we will be highlighting specific rivalries throughout the history of football, not just the NFL, college football as well. This is player versus player, team versus team, team versus player, wherever, however you get a rivalry. You can bet that we're going to talk about it at some point. So we're pushing out over 6 to 7 episodes a day. We also have a whole separate show dedicated to the primetime games. So the Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football, all of the games that are on an island by themselves, we have a host named Goose who breaks down the primetime games for us. So we're loaded. I think 5 different voices now on the show, which is crazy to think about, consistently putting out new shows. So I just wanted to shamelessly plug my other project that I have going on. If you are a football fan, you should already be listening to the Football Function. And if you're not a football fan, I think you still might find a little bit of entertainment in some of the episodes. But obviously, if you don't like football, then there really isn't much that we can do to change your mind. But I just wanted to let you guys know that that is up and running pretty smoothly right now. So if you guys wanted to check that out, I would definitely appreciate that. But we're here to talk about wrestling. This is the SmackDown review. This is my first baby. The show that I've been doing for, let me get this out really quickly so I don't mess this up, 154 weeks. And that's just in terms of the episodes that I've dropped. I mentioned there's been about a handful, 3 or 4 weeks that I was not able to be here, but that's just life. That's just part of podcasting. You're not going to be able to completely have a perfect attendance record. Even, the greats, even the people who very popular and successful podcasts, whether it's the movie rewatch podcast or, just the podcasts that have been going around for a long time that just provide informative stuff such as sports analytics, political podcasts, which exist, podcasts that are about therapy. Like, I'm not even joking. There's podcasts out there that are dedicated to mental health. Like that, if you just listen to it, it's almost like you're getting free therapy because they're talking you through several different situations and possibilities that could come up in life. And most of the time it's like tough situations, situations that people might need to reach out to somebody to ask for advice because they're not necessarily the most ideal situations. So there's a lot of avenues you can go to for podcasting. And I'm pretty sure that all of them at some point either take time off or just miss a random episode here or there because, hey, life happens. But I do not enjoy missing SmackDown. So any week that I'm available, which is most of the time, my schedule's pretty much set in stone to where SmackDown and doing the SmackDown review is just part of my routine. So I enjoy it, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well because I'm trying as hard as I possibly can to make this the most enjoyable possible show that it could be for you. So just the branches of communication are still there. I don't want to just make it seem like, if I see a negative review, I'm going to put out the plugs and tell people, hey, clear your mind or speak your mind directly to me and I can do what I can to help the show. No, even whenever things are going well, or at least I think they're going well, I still put those out there. I want you guys to definitely communicate and let me know what I can do to improve this show and what you want to hear more of. Like, that's another thing. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to do my stuff and you either like it or you don't. Like, if you have a suggestion, you're like, hey, I kind of have an idea. I think the show would be better if you did this or that. Then I'll most definitely take that into consideration, because you guys are ultimately who this show is for and what it's about. So I do want to thank you, obviously, for tuning in to this SmackDown review. The SmackDown that I'm going to be covering aired on September 29th, 2023 from Sacramento, California. Shout out to DJ Kuzmo for providing the location breakdown. Sacramento, I've actually been, associated with Sacramento over the past few months. I actually started watching Even Stevens. Just a little bit of a spoiler alert. For people who grew up when I grew up, which is in the 2000s, then you probably were familiar with Disney Channel and, that golden era of Disney Channel, which only lasted, I don't even know what, like 2003 to 2005, that kind of time frame. I was right around 10 years old in 2003 because I was born in 1993. So obviously I experienced the 90s as well in a different way, and I enjoyed the music and the television that was going on in the 90s too, but something about the 2000s just really hits the nail right on the head whenever you're talking about the things I'm nostalgic about. So I just recently rewatched Even Stevens. It's only 3 seasons, actually, which kind of blew my mind. I figured it went on for much longer given the impact that show had. It's just a cult classic. If you were a fan of Disney Channel in the mid-2000s, then you probably enjoyed Even Stevens. And the only reason why I'm bringing this whole thing up about the 2000s and the shows that I was watching, blah, 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 is because Even Stevens was based in Sacramento. That's where the show was set at. So anytime I see Sacramento, especially here lately, that's fresh on my mind, that's like one of the first things that come to mind is old Beans trying to snip around the Stevens house, stealing their bacon, always getting involved in their situations. Obviously, Lewis and all of the crazy things that he was getting up to. If you don't know Even Stevens, you probably have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. I'm just kind of rambling on at this point, which should just go ahead and lead me right in to this specific episode of SmackDown. Last week might have been a little bit flat compared to this week. I don't know what it was. Maybe just sandwiched between The Rock's return and all that, and then looking at the SmackDown we got tonight, which I thought was pretty good, enjoyable. I did see some people say that SmackDown really just didn't do it for them last week. It was kind of like a meh episode, just probably graded like a 6 out of 10 or something like that. I'm not as hard on it. I'm not even hard on Raw, even back during the 2016, 2018 era, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. People that I know who don't watch wrestling just kind of, they crap on it. And even some people who do watch wrestling, it's just like they watch it to look for the things to complain about. It's like, yeah, I'm going to watch wrestling, but only so I can go on Twitter and just start rambling on about why I disagree with what the company's doing. I call those people out. Like, people who only post negative stuff, I'm like, dude, I'm not telling you what you can and can't watch, obviously, but if all you do is negatively speak about what you're watching, what's the point of even watching it? Like, seriously, because obviously your expectations aren't going to be met. You clearly are just maybe trying to put a square peg in a round hole in terms of your interests. Like, if you're not a wrestling fan, then you're not going to find the half glass full perspective. You're not going to look at it from a point of view of, hey, this is what they're trying to do, maybe to set up something for next week. Usually, if they don't do what you want them to do right then, like if you don't get your cake right now and get to enjoy it, then you likely don't enjoy the show. And those are the wrestling fans that I feel like can't be pleased. I just feel like no matter what, they might like something here or there, but it's usually what, like The Rock coming back, Stone Cold Steve Austin making an appearance. Like, the people that I have to tell whenever I'm explaining to them something big happened in wrestling, and if I don't mention a name from the past, if I don't mention a Hall of Famer's name, they're not into it. They're like, oh wait, The Rock showed up on wrestling? Maybe I should go back and watch. Like, that's not why you watch wrestling nowadays, because if that's why, then you're going to be disappointed, because legends are coming few and far between, but even less and less as years go on. Just the people from our era, it is what it is. Time goes on. You're going to see less and less of these people, and that's something that I've kind of just appreciated or understood here lately, is that even if I'm not a massive fan of what their ring work is, like The Undertaker, I mentioned this one several times whenever he was wrestling his last 5 matches, it was very cringe for me, just from The Undertaker that I was used to seeing and how much respect I had for him. Seeing that version of him where he was pretty much just, limping around and moving at 4 or 5 speeds slower than what he used to, I don't ever want to see a shell of somebody like The Undertaker, and kind of same thing with John Cena. We talked about it. I mean, his ring work hasn't really fallen off a cliff, but he is a little bit slower, and I feel like the more and more we see Cena, we're going to get used to that, and maybe things that he does wrong might get more exposed because we're getting a bigger sample size. Obviously, if you throw a football 100 times, you might be able to pinpoint a few more bad passes than if you only throw a football 5 times. We are halfway through, this kind of brings me to this, with John Cena's return. He's only going to be here for, I believe it was 7 or 8 weeks. We're already about 3 or 4 weeks in. So we're getting kind of to the end of this Cena return. Hopefully it won't be the last return that we see of him, but this program that he's got going on, it's probably going to be centered around Fastlane and the feud that they have. Other than that, though, I think he's just here to kind of make people happy. The writer's strike is likely coming to an end very soon, so things might go back to usual if I were to predict myself. But John Cena is heavily involved in what's going on with SmackDown right now. He's a big focal point. And the show starts off with Paul Heyman, Jimmy Uso, and Solo Sikoa coming to the ring. And Paul Heyman mentions that John Cena is having transportation issues. I don't know if this was real or not. Who knows? I'm not even going to try to nitpick it. But pretty much Heyman was saying that John Cena was having transportation issues, so he's not at SmackDown tonight. He also adds that AJ Styles isn't at SmackDown either because of the attack that happened backstage last week by Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa. And Paul continues talking on for a little bit, but eventually Jimmy Uso puts his hand out asking for the microphone, kind of similar to what Roman Reigns does. I don't know if he was just like being a smartass when he was doing this, or if he was legitimately trying to take the place of the tribal chief. It was kind of odd to see. Even Paul Heyman, he's like, oh, what are you doing? He doesn't really go for it. So Jimmy just aggressively snatches the microphone out of his hand. And then he says that Paul Heyman is being too nice. The reason John Cena isn't there is because he's scared of him, referring to himself. And as he's rambling on, Carl Anderson sneaks up and attacks him from behind. He attacks him and Solo from behind. They are able to leave the ring safely, but Carl Anderson starts screaming that it's personal now. He told AJ Styles not to get involved in the bloodline business, but he did, so now things are personal, and that he's willing to fight any of them tonight. So obviously, Solo tries to retaliate, but Paul Heyman stops him, whispers something in his ear, and then Solo tells Jimmy to handle it. He says, "You handle it, or I'm going to handle it for you." And that leads to a match between Jimmy Uso and Carl Anderson, with Solo Sikoa and Paul Heyman watching from ringside. Not really a long match whatsoever. Jimmy wins quickly with an Uso splash. But after the match is over, Carl Anderson, he still wants a piece because he tries attacking Jimmy, literally as Jimmy's just standing there kind of celebrating, holding his hand up. And then Solo Sikoa gets in there and hits him with a Samoa spike, which does put an end to Carl Anderson. Not sure how long he's going to be out. Probably not long. I mean, it's just a Samoan spike. If that's a finishing move, then we shouldn't allow it if it's going to put people in the hospital or anything like that. But it definitely ended his night. Mia Yim comes out immediately after that just to kind of check on her partner, her friend, Carl Anderson. And then Jimmy Uso, as she's running out, Jimmy's kind of trying to rub it in her face. He's leaning over, telling her to go that way to the ring or whatever he's saying. I don't really know exactly what he's saying, but he's sticking his head out far enough to where Mia Yim knows only one thing, and that's to absolutely smack the taste out of his mouth, which is what she does. It was a good smack. Solid connection there. Probably haven't seen a smack that good since probably Sasha Banks. She is somebody who always used to deliver whenever she smacked someone on the face. I felt like I felt it watching from home. And that's kind of the same thing here with Mia Yim. She goes out there and checks on him, but before so, she definitely has to give Jimmy Uso a little bit of a retribution for her boy, Carl Anderson. Continuing on here, we get a backstage interview with Santos Escobar. Kathy Kelly asks where his mindset is before such a big match that he has tonight for the United States Championship against his idol and his mentor, Rey Mysterio. And he admits he has some butterflies in his stomach because it's always been a dream to wrestle Rey Mysterio for a championship. And tonight, he gets to do just that. And he says that Rey Mysterio is in for a fight. So they're kind of just teasing that this is going to be a pretty good match, and it definitely catches my attention. Keeping things backstage, we do see the Bloodline. Jimmy is obviously upset after getting smacked on live television. So he starts insulting and shoving different WWE employees backstage. He pushed one guy up against the wall, knocks him on his ass, and Paul Heyman doesn't seem to be okay with it. I don't know exactly. I couldn't get the vibe because the guy's like trying to get up, and Paul Heyman's like, relax. Pulls his phone up to his mouth. Call Roman Reigns like he always does. So I really wasn't sure if he was trying to like get Jimmy in more hot water or just pretty much fill Roman Reigns in because he wants to know everything that's going on with the bloodline. I'm not really sure, but the fact that they kept the camera on Paul whenever he said to call Roman Reigns just still tells me. And then after him trying to snatch the microphone from Paul Heyman, that was just pretty much like a no-no right there. You don't ever try to do that. Not even like, I mean, he didn't try to snatch it. He did snatch it from his hand. So Paul Heyman is not on good terms with Jimmy, I don't think. And especially the fact that he told Solo to tell Jimmy to settle this with Carl Anderson. Like he didn't want to risk Solo, or he wanted possibly Jimmy Uso to get beat. I don't really know exactly his motives in all this. But it's worth noting that Paul Heyman is really the straw that's stirring the drink here, because it's pretty much just Solo and Jimmy on autopilot. Like they can't carry a program. They're trying. I mean, Jimmy Uso is doing the best that he can with this new character and him just being like an annoying a-hole. But Solo really doesn't say much. His little one-liners that he has here and there, they're not going to carry this. The facial expressions, the body language, the small one-liners that Paul Heyman is saying, that's what's slowly progressing this storyline. And that's what's going to be talked about in coming weeks whenever we get Roman Reigns back and eventually the Jimmy Uso stuff. So they're going to put together a video package. And in that video package, you're probably going to see Paul Heyman multiple times in these segments calling Roman Reigns, secretly sending Jimmy Uso to do the dirty work. There's going to be different points of view once they put together the badass video packages that they always do. But I just know that Paul Heyman is right now, he's carrying this Bloodline segment or this Bloodline program. Whatever feud they're in, it doesn't really matter at this point. If it's, I guess, maybe John Cena, LA Knight has name dropped Roman Reigns a couple times. Like, I don't really know who he's going after. Roman Reigns is kind of just coasting with his feet up right now. So shout out to Paul Heyman for making the Bloodline still feel important. Up next here on the show, we get Grayson Waller, the Grayson Waller effect, with Bobby Lashley as his guest. And one thing I noticed that was kind of funny, Bobby Lashley's coming out to the ring, and Grayson Waller starts doing push-ups. Like, you know, I mean, I've seen literally referees do this backstage when I was at WrestleMania 38. We had a good enough view. I don't want to say a good enough view because obviously we were like behind the stage, so we didn't get to see the actual entrances and stuff. We saw them on the Jumbotron. But our view was set up where we were kind of sort of up in the middle section behind the stage. Not directly behind it, but kind of off to the side to where you couldn't see the screen or the real entrance, but you could see the wrestlers come down down a ramp before they get in the gorilla. And in that little section, we saw referees doing push-ups. So we knew, oh, that referee is about to go out there and have a match or something like that because he's trying to get his biceps looking good, doing that quick little bicep pump. And then we also got to see, Stone Cold Steve Austin's four-wheeler, whatever vehicle Sasha Banks went out in. I think it might have been like a Lamborghini. Her and Naomi were tag team partners at this time. But what I'm trying to say is the push-ups that Grayson Waller was doing was just pretty much trying to look a little bit big. He didn't want to look small next to the Almighty. But Grayson Waller does point out the Street Profits' devastating loss last week. Bobby Lashley kind of cuts him off. He immediately starts ruling out the Street Profits and just thinking that he made a bad decision. He did say that it was a mistake choosing the Street Profits, and he implies that he needs to get back to the drawing board to find the next group of wrestlers that he wants to try to groom and develop. So Waller sees an opportunity here, and he throws his and Austin Theory's name into the hat and suggests that maybe Bobby Lashley gives them a chance. Since, remember, they're an undefeated tag team. They have yet to be beaten. So he thinks that's enough for Bobby Lashley to be impressed with him and Theory, A-Town Down Under as a tag team. But Lashley says, I already know all about Austin Theory. I've crossed paths with him before. I don't really want to go that way. So, thanks, but no thanks. And then, as you were probably expecting, I know I was expecting, the Street Profits music hits and they come out. They try to explain themselves, but Lashley interrupts them and says he doesn't want to hear excuses. He tells them that if they want something from him, then prove it. I thought right there they were going to attack Grayson Waller, and that kind of was where I thought was going to happen. No, they're going to beat the living hell out of him. Is this going to make Grayson Waller a de facto babyface? See, my brain was already kind of trying to go two steps ahead. It was trying to figure out where WWE was going before they actually went there, but I was not accurate on this one because immediately after that, Grayson Waller tries to pivot and he introduces Austin Theory just to kind of try to avoid the awkward situation there. It was silent, so Grayson Waller avoids that, introduces Austin Theory, who comes out for his match against Cameron Grimes, which Cameron Grimes comes out swinging in their match immediately after the bell rings. He does a pretty impressive little backflip into a suplex. This was a move I didn't want to just give it some weird name that wasn't accurate because I'm sure this move has a name. But long story short, Austin Theory was on all fours in the middle of the ring. Cameron Grimes does a backflip, essentially putting himself in prime position to do or to roll right in to a German suplex and then into like a pinfall type thing, like a bridged pin where his feet are on the ground, his head's on the mat, and he has that bridge in and he's doing a successful pin. I don't think the crowd in Sacramento gave that move, that spot, the respect that it deserved. I rewinded it. I was like, man, that was an impressive move by Grimes. I truly don't think I've seen him do anything cooler than that. So hopefully he gets featured a little bit more. Every time I've seen him in the ring since he got called up from NXT in the most recent draft, and he's been at SmackDown. I know he beat the hell out of Baron Corbin in like 3 seconds or something like that, but that stomp that he does, I can tell you right now that Cameron Grimes, when he was in NXT, I was not high on him. I truly wasn't. He was somebody that just, he didn't do it for me. I was just like, man, this isn't my type of professional wrestler. He still may not be my type of professional wrestler, but I'm going to give him credit where it's due, and he's doing a damn good job in the ring, and the arrow is pointing up. Like, I am sort of going in the direction of thinking, man, Cameron Grimes is actually pretty good after all, so I definitely wanted to give him a shout out there. But as this match is going on, Theory throws Cameron Grimes into the ring post as he's being distracted by Waller, and then Theory gets him back in the ring and capitalizes by hitting the A-Town down and pinning Grimes for the win. During this match, they had Dragon Lee sitting at ringside. I'm not too familiar with who this guy is. I don't know if he's on NXT or exactly, where he's from. So that is on me. I've noticed over the past couple weeks they've shown him, and I haven't really been too familiar with exactly who it is. So hopefully I'll be introduced to him a little bit more. But after this match is over, Austin Theory goes right up to him because he was sitting in the front row and pretty much just shoves his face. Like, he just pushes his face, and obviously Dragon Lee didn't like that. This is clearly setting up a future match between those two at some point. I do believe that we're going to get it next week. I think they highlighted that. I'm actually pretty certain that we're going to get it next week. So that's something we can look forward to on the Go Home show for Fastlane. But up next, we get a backstage interview with Rey Mysterio, and he pretty much is just responding to Santos' comments earlier. He praises Santos and says he has nothing but love and respect for him, but he needs to be careful what you wish for because tonight he is definitely going to give him the fight of his life. And if Rey Mysterio says that, I would get butterflies. I'd get those goosebumps standing up. Just a bone-chilling type of moment there. I can only imagine what it's like knowing that you're going to step in the ring with Rey Mysterio. But continuing our little backstage trend here, Jimmy Uso is continuing his havoc by going and attacking Ashanti the Adonis. And this time Solo jumps in by helping him and puts him through the table. Oh, man, this was a brutal little attack here backstage for Ashanti the Adonis. B-Fab was there standing, kind of just watching on. If Jimmy was really trying to wreak havoc around the backstage locker room area, he would have put B-Fab through the table as well. Obviously, I'm joking, but she was just standing there kind of like an innocent bystander, just watching her tag team partner or her friend, someone who's in the same group as her, just get demolished, which isn't really a group. Since Top Dollar got let go, it is still considered a faction. I don't really know. They're kind of just hanging around backstage. Maybe the WWE SmackDown team has some plans for them. Don't really know, but I wouldn't be too optimistic about it. Speaking of Top Dollar, have you guys been seeing him on Twitter? The things that he's saying, the videos he's posting, letting raps out and stuff like that. Like, he is legit, and I'm going to be honest. Look, the dude is way more successful in life than I am. He's made it to the NFL, made it to WWE, obviously. So I'm not sitting here saying, ooh, this guy's a bum. He's more successful than a lot of the people that are going to be listening to this. Like, he's reached highs in the career paths that he's taken. But there's something that a football coach said a long time ago. And it's whenever somebody who was on my football team was just a jerk, just an absolute just a-hole to people who, whether they were on different teams, on the same team in practice. And the fact of the matter is, this guy wasn't as good as what he thought he was. So my coach literally said one time whenever we were watching film, he pointed out a play where he shoved a guy after the whistle was blown, after the play was over, pretty much like just a little bit of an extra unnecessary roughness type thing. He pointed the laser at him on the film. We were watching it. The whole defense was in there. And he said, looked him right in the eyes in front of everybody and said, "You're not good enough to be an a-hole." But he didn't say a-hole. He said the actual word that I don't feel comfortable saying here on this show because, I know it's a PG show, or at least it's supposed to be non-explicit. So the actual a-hole word might be a little bit too much to say, but you guys get the drift. Like, you're not good enough to be an a-hole. So I feel like with Top Dollar, like, look, I get it. Like, you're impressive in terms of, most people in the world, but whenever you factor yourself and put yourself in a vacuum with people who are on your level, people who are the same size, the same strength as you, the people who have made it the same distance as you, but exceeded as far as you went, then I'm just like, okay, like, then it's a little bit more, when you take a step back and you look at the big picture, you realize that Top Dollar just needs to take a chill pill, all right? He's acting like he was extremely misused in WWE, which he might have been. I'm sure he was decent on the microphone, and he didn't get as many opportunities to have a fire promo or all that good stuff. Just go to his Twitter if you want to see what I'm saying. He's making it seem like WWE just lost The Undertaker here. He's making it seem like WWE made the biggest mistake they could have possibly made by letting him go, and, we're going to rue the day that we let Top Dollar walk. I'm just like, man, I have been clamoring to get this dude off my television screen way before his little mishap where he tried to jump over the top rope and almost broke his freaking neck. Shout out to Kurt Angle. But I was low on Top Dollar and Hit Row as a group, just for that matter, from the second I saw their first promo. When I saw their little Disney Channel rap that they did, I was like, man, I really hope this isn't like a weekly thing that we're going to have to see. And sure enough, it pretty much was, until WWE realized, like, hey, this probably isn't the best idea. These guys are getting booed. Our commentary team is roasting them. They're botching left and right. None of them are really that talented in the ring when you're talking about Hit Row. So that's kind of like, I was wondering, why just Top Dollar? Because it almost makes it seem like, he was the worst of the bunch, don't get me wrong. But I'm just like, what are they going to do with B-Fab and Ashanti the Adonis now? Are they just going to leave them backstage to get attacked? I don't know. There were the little wave of budget cuts and future endeavors that WWE did. Dolph Ziggler was a surprising one. Dana Brooke was a surprising one. I kind of saw the rest coming. Matt Riddle, obviously, he's a little bit different. That was a situation that probably could have been avoided. He just kind of had too many chances, too many tally marks on his name. I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, you're not helping yourself out here. I just wanted to comment on the whole Top Dollar thing. If you haven't already, go check out his Twitter. It's a fire video that he made, but it's just like, man, like, come on. You're going to do well in whatever you do next, I assume. You're a talented guy. You seem like you're very ambitious. I imagine that whatever you set your mind to, you get to the top, but it's staying at the top and actually, thriving in WWE. I thought that he was more so like an on-camera personality, like the Hidden Treasures show where WWE goes and they find different artifacts that are historic, like antiques, Kane's mask or Kane's boots, something like that. I don't know exactly what it was. It was a series that they had, and Top Dollar was involved, and they tried to make him an actual in-ring competitor, and I feel like that's where they kind of lost me. But, obviously I don't wish ill will on anybody. I'm just pretty much calling a spade a spade. Like, I want him to be successful in whatever he does next. But he's trying to bury WWE and act like, hey, you guys just let The Rock go, So it's neither here nor there. But speaking about Hit Row kind of just got me thinking about that. Moving on here, we get Rey Mysterio versus Santos Escobar. The United States Championship is on the line in this one. And this was a pretty good match, as you would expect. It went on, 10 minutes plus at least. A lot of back and forth. But towards the end, whenever things really got interesting and you knew, okay, somebody's about to win this match. Somebody has to win it at some point. Santos Escobar counters a 619 attempt by Rey Mysterio, but Rey counters his counter and puts him back in position for a 619. This time he hits it, but he misses the splash after the 619. And Santos pretty much had one last shot, one last opportunity to win this bad boy after he moved out of the way of that splash. So he hits Rey Mysterio with a Phantom Driver, or at least tries to, but Mysterio reverses it, puts him in a roll-up, successfully steals the win. And after the match, they're somewhat having a little bit of an embrace together. But they're attacked by the Street Profits from behind, which obviously gets Lashley's attention, his stamp of approval. And apparently, they're back in the good graces with the Almighty. So definitely shout out to the Street Profits for fixing the issues that they had going on in their little situation. But at first, because one of the other LWO members, Joaquin Wilde, I believe is his name, he comes out to try to assist, and they beat the crap out of him. But before he came out, they did like one move to Rey Mysterio, maybe hit Santos Escobar with a little something too. But it wasn't, I felt like, enough for Bobby Lashley to change his mind and be like, oh, I was wrong. These guys do have that killer instinct. Eventually, they started beating the hell out of LWO a little bit more. But at first, I was just like, that's what, I mean, they didn't do anything different than what they've done the past couple of weeks. I mean, yeah, they lost a match. They didn't win a match just now. So what did that make you, like, why did that pretty much cancel out the match that they lost? Because they've been attacking people, kind of. They've been showing that they're a little bit different. I guess this is a little bit of a slow step. So I'm not going to criticize it or anything like that. That was just kind of my reaction in real time. I was like, whenever they first attacked him, before Lashley came out, I was like, okay, so please don't tell me this is going to be enough and Lashley's going to be all right with it. And sure enough, he was, but the attack ended up going on a little bit longer, so it was all good with me. Continuing on here, Caleb Braxton finds Mysterio and Escobar in the medical room, getting a little bit of attention. And Rey Mysterio challenges Lashley and the Street Profits to a match at Fastlane. So we're going to get probably 6-man tag. I believe so. I'm pretty sure. I mean, because isn't there 2 members? Yeah, because there's 4 members, 4 male members in the LWO. And there's also Zelina Vega. So 5 total. It would have to be some type of trios, like 3-on-3, 6-man tag match. That's just kind of how I'm trying to forecast it. I guess we'll see the exact match next week on SmackDown whenever it's highlighted, or maybe they'll announce it before then. I imagine so. Maybe we'll get a little bit of a Fastlane preview on Monday Night Raw, where they can just highlight the matches that are going to be going on that weekend. And I assume that maybe they'll touch on the Rey Mysterio and LWO versus Lashley and the Street Profits. That's going to be happening at Fastlane. Another news item here to talk about. Jade Cargill signs with WWE AEW star. I'm going to be honest, guys. I've had my eyes on her for years. Like, legitimately. She has been the one women's wrestler in AEW that I always wanted. Like, admiring from afar. She's somebody that I was like, man, get her in WWE. She looks like a wrestler that fits in WWE. I was just kind of drawn to her aesthetic. She looks like a beast. She really does. She looks like somebody that could give Bianca Belair a run for her money real quick when you're talking about, like, the EST. You know, the biggest, the fastest, the strongest. She has some competition now at the very least. And this is just somebody who I feel like is going to make the company a hell of a lot stronger, especially the women's division. There's a lot of fantasy matches that I want to see. Obviously, Jade versus Charlotte, Jade versus Raquel, Jade versus Rhea, Jade versus Bianca, like I just mentioned. I'm excited to have her here, and I hope that she's going to be on SmackDown. I really do. I don't know exactly where she's going to get called up to. Probably going to take a little bit of time to get her fully on pace with the WWE lifestyle, but it will happen sooner rather than later, and I hope that she ends up on SmackDown. Because at one point, it was like legitimately, I'm not the biggest AEW fan. There's not a whole lot of wrestlers over there that I look at and say, I want them to come to WWE. Kenny Omega and MJF are the 2 guys that I want to see come over to WWE. The woman had always been Jade Cargill. So the fact that we do have her now, I'm excited for the prospects of what we're going to see. And I do believe that she's going to have a phenomenal run here in WWE. Up next on the show, we see John Cena arrive. He shows up. He has a contract in his hand. He just throws his car in park, immediately heads inside. And he's looking for business. Like, he's not there to have fun. He's not there to do the typical, like, oh, let me shake your hand on my way. No, he's going directly to the ring to figure out what the hell's going on and to pretty much just send a message to the WWE Universe and I guess just everybody else who's watching. But before that happens, we get what we were promised last week, a one-on-one match between Charlotte and Bayley. Obviously, this match stems from what happened last week in Io Sky and Asuka's WWE Women's Championship match, where these 2 women were both at ringside, and we've mentioned how Charlotte kind of sort of turned babyface, if she wasn't already. I already mentioned it, not going to get back into it. Charlotte's a tweener, if anybody is a tweener when it comes to heel versus babyface. But before this match begins, Charlotte says that after she wins, she's challenging Io for the WWE Women's Championship. So right there, you already know what her mission is, why she's back, and what she's going to do next. So, I mean, if you didn't know, which you should have known, Charlotte's going to be thrusted into that main event picture, which is ultimately where she belongs and the only place she belongs. It is what it is. She's a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best women's wrestlers I've ever seen. So continuing on, she does just that. She beats Bayley in dominating fashion. Bayley really never has an opportunity to win this one. There's never a chance or a spot in this match where you think that Bayley's going to win. Charlotte just runs away with it. And after the match, Bayley picks up the microphone and says that she still thinks it's unfair that Charlotte cuts in line and she wants to be, right at the top for a championship opportunity. So Damage Control tries to corner her, but Asuka comes out and comes to the rescue and, protects Charlotte here. And then Asuka picks up a mic and she's just kind of rambling on in Japanese. And this is where it gets interesting because Bayley apparently speaks Japanese. She accepts Asuka's quote-unquote challenge for a triple threat match at Fastlane. She says, all right, you want a triple threat match at Fastlane between Charlotte, Io Sky, and Asuka? Io accepts. So she accepts the quote-unquote challenge on Io's behalf, but you hear Io immediately say, hey, she didn't say that. That's not what she said, blah, blah, blah. So this is another moment where Bayley is getting the wagon ahead of the horses, pretty much. She's jumping the gun. She's pretty much being out of line, if we're being honest. She's accepting matches that aren't for her. She's trying to screw Io over. That's just point blank what it is. She's trying to eventually put Io in a disadvantageous spot where she's going to lose that championship. And I don't know where Dakota Kai falls in all this, but I mean, I'll be honest, like the Damage Control stuff, you actually see where they're going, and I'm just a lot more high on that program and that slow build or slow decimation, should I say, to a faction crumbling. Like we saw it with the Bloodline. It was brilliant stuff. It's still going on, literally. But this just has a little bit of like an evolution feel to it. With Triple H in the Bayley role, even though, Triple H was champ. But just the point where you're trying to just screw over the people who are there right by your side. And that's just kind of the gist that I'm getting here from Bayley. And now Io has to defend her championship in a triple threat match. This has got to, I guess, put this on the fast track to this faction crumbling. I feel like, forcing her to defend her championship against Asuka and Charlotte, two of the most dominant women wrestlers that we've seen in this generation. Yeah, Io's got to be pretty pissed off about that. But up next, to close out the show, the final segment, we get John Cena, the greatest of all time. If you ask Mike Rome, he's the greatest of all time. Paul Heyman said he's the second greatest of all time, so apparently Roman Reigns must be number one to Paul Heyman. But John Cena comes out to the ring. He has that contract, and he's pretty much saying what happened. Look, you guys all saw what happened. They whooped my ass last week, and they signed this contract, and I don't have a tag team partner, but that's not going to stop me from competing. It does not bother me that they did that because I told you guys last week, I came back to WWE so I can compete. And damn it, that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a match. So he wants to have a match at Fastlane. He wanted it to be a tag team, but because he doesn't have a partner, he's willing to do it 2-on-1 handicap match. And he said, if I don't find a partner by Fastlane, that's what it's going to be. And immediately, Jimmy Uso and Solo come out to the ring. Their music hits. They're standing there on the apron. John Cena immediately, bam, takes out Jimmy Uso and backs up, gives Solo some room and says, hey, come get you some. Takes off his shirt, throws it into the crowd. Solo goes in the ring. They're kind of throwing hands, going back and forth. As he has Solo on his shoulders, about to deliver the FU, we see Jimmy Uso come in, give him a super kick. Same thing that we kind of saw happen last week. And, John Cena is getting his ass kicked. And then the unthinkable happens. Somebody was off SmackDown last week. So SmackDown was noticeably different last week because we didn't hear something very, very specific. And that sound that you just heard is exactly what the crowd in Sacramento hear as John Cena is getting a 2-on-1 beatdown. None other than L.A. Knight comes to the rescue, helps him. You know, the crowd's popping like crazy. I'm getting goosebumps just even talking about it right now. The crowd pops like crazy. LA Knight helps John Cena, gets Solo, gets Jimmy Uso the hell out of the ring, picks up that contract, signs it himself, and now John Cena no longer has to look. He no longer has to think about the prospects of going 2-on-1 against the Bloodline. He has a partner, and it just so happens to be the hottest wrestler right now in WWE, arguably in the entire industry, but that's not for me to decide. All I know is this moment made me pop. I'm so glad that LA Knight's back. Obviously, we talked about it. He was gone last week because he had COVID. He is back now, and he is going to have a pretty big role here in Fastlane, and hopefully him putting his nose in the Bloodline business gets him a little bit further into the Bloodline business, if you know what I'm talking about. Maybe leading a little bit into the fall, later into the fall, close to winter. Could we get LA Knight versus Roman Reigns? Possibly. I wouldn't rule it out. There's definitely a good chance. He's already name-dropped him. Is there somebody else worthy of getting a shot at Roman? My only thing is I don't want to see LA Knight lose. So if he does go at Roman, I would rather it be later on in this title reign of Roman. But nonetheless, I'm all for the opportunity. I'm all for LA Knight getting the spotlight, getting the rub, if you will, for Roman Reigns. And yeah, just sign me up for it. Any opportunity that I get to see LA Knight team up with a legend like John Cena, I'm going to be glued to the TV on this match, and I'm just really excited for it, to say the very least. But guys, that does do it for me here on the SmackDown review. I do appreciate you guys, per usual, making this show part of your weekly routine. I really, really appreciate it. It means the world to me that you guys will take time out of your schedules, out of your week, when you could be listening to anything else. You know how much music is out there in the world? You know how many other podcasts are out there in the world? So the fact that you are, sticking with us here on the WWE podcast, taking the time out of your life to add us and let us be a part of your day means the world to us all. So hopefully you will continue to do so. Hopefully you'll go on over to Football Function as well. It's another pretty fun environment. We put the fun in function. That's one way I like to look at it. But in all seriousness, you will get some pretty good football insight from all aspects of football, and just, it'll give you your fix. So I would definitely appreciate it if you guys would give that podcast a chance. But here at the WWE podcast, without a doubt, go subscribe on the Patreon, get in that Discord chat, talk to all the other WWE podcast listeners out there and communicate. And, it's a better way to watch the pay-per-views. That's for damn sure. But thank you guys so much. I hope you all have a damn good rest of your weekend. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams. Enjoy the very last day of September, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.